Welcome to the next episode, Chapter 4 of The Umbrella Girls. Don't forget to follow us so that you don't miss out on any other future episodes. Also, very soon, we're going to give everyone the chance to join the Umbrella Girls Club. So let's get moving and find out what the Umbrella Girls are up to now. Anna was still unsure why she had agreed to follow the rest of the girls out to the garden so late at night. But in the end, it came down to either staying in Jojo's room next to the mad granny while the rest went out, or stay with them. She was still not convinced she was doing the right thing, but she reckoned she was safer in a group. The rain was coming down lightly as the girls stood in the hall, putting on their shoes. Jojo pulled on her wellies and looked over at Sam, who was pulling on the other pair of wellies that she had found in the cupboard. Anna and Kay were happy to wear their own shoes, mainly because fashion was more important to them. They had found 3 torches that they had put in the backpack that Jojo had on her back. And in the backpack was also hidden the journal. "Where are you off to, girls?" Jojo's dad asked the girls as he tried to carry 3 cups of tea and open the door all at the same time. Anna jumped up and opened the door for him. "Thanks, Anna." "Just out the garden, Dad, for a few," Jojo said. "Okay, we're starting to rain a bit," he said as he looked out the glass windows in the front door. "In that press over there," he said, nodding his head in the direction of the wooden press beside the front door. "I think I saw some umbrellas. Grab one each." "Thanks, Dad," Jojo said as she opened the press that was beside the hall door. "Oh, I didn't know this was here. Look, there's old shoes, jackets, and a load of other stuff," she said as she moved a few things around, looking for the umbrellas. Then Jojo saw another set of doors inside the press. "What's in here?" she said to herself as she pulled them open. And there was a selection of umbrellas hanging, all neat and tidy. Unlike the other stuff in the cupboard, like the shoes and the old jacket, which was full of dust and cobwebs, these umbrellas were spotless, dust and cobweb free. She grabbed a hold of 4 of the red umbrellas and handed them round to her other friends. "Do we need one each?" Sam asked as she viewed the red umbrella with dread. She was a hoodie person, so the idea of being seen in public holding an umbrella sent a shudder right through her whole body. Jojo laughed at her. She knew her friend well and could even read her mind. "It's only for the garden, Sam. We're not going into the schoolyard." "Yeah, okay," Sam said. "But if anybody takes a photo of me with this umbrella, they are dead," she said to her other friends, who all gave her dagger looks. "Was there a deal on these?" Kay asked as she looked at the others. "What are you talking about?" Jojo asked, confused. "They're all the same colour. Was the local shop doing a clear out?" Jojo just looked at her friend. "I have no idea. Now, can we move it before it gets too late?" Jojo said as she looked at her watch. The girls all stood in the dark, looking at the moon dial. It was very dark in this part of the garden, and because of the breeze, which was starting to build up, all the umbrellas were still down. And with the exception of Sam, who had her hood up, the other girls were starting to get wet and cold. "So what time is the show now?" Kay asked, still completely confused how anyone could have used a sundial to tell the time years ago. Maybe that's why they were always late? "I'm not sure," Sam said as she looked close at the dial and then looked up. "I think the trees are blocking some of it." "Well, they would have been so much smaller years ago," Jojo said as she pulled a journal from her backpack. "Anna, open your umbrella and hold her over me, please," Jojo said. Anna did as she was told, and Sam and Jojo looked at the picture in the journal. "You're right. So what now?" Jojo asked. "I'm not sure," Sam asked as she looked up at the trees again. "So, if the dial does not show 10 p.m., I assume we cannot see the door shape in the trees," Anna said with relief. The whole idea of being out in the dark garden, in the wind and the rain, was really freaking her out. She always hated Halloween and everything that went with it, and tonight was like Halloween all over again, and she hated it. It's a pity the trees are blocking the moonlight, Kay said as she looked up at the tall oak trees. She'd been really looking forward to seeing if you could really see a door shape in the trees at 10 p.m. Unless, Sam said as she took her flashlight out of her pocket. What are you thinking? Jojo asked as she looked at Sam, looking around at all the trees. Well, how about we make our own moon? Sam said, smiling. According to my watch, the moon would need to be about here to show 10 on the dial, she said as she moved closer to the bunch of trees. Make our own moon? And how do we do that? Kay asked as she looked at Sam, moving around and shining the torch at the dial from different angles. The torch becomes the moon, Sam said. That's a great idea, Sam, Jojo said as she put the journal back into her backpack. Okay, I need a hand here, Sam said as she stood under one of the oak trees. I need to get up to that branch up there, she said as she pointed to a branch about 6 feet off the ground. How do you know it's safe? Anna asked, not liking the way things were going. That branch might be rotten. Look how old these trees are. Never mind that, Kay said. Here, Sam, try and stand on my shoulders, Kay said as she knelt a little bit to allow Sam to climb onto her shoulders. She wobbled as she took the full weight of Sam, and it was only when Jojo put her hands around her waist that Sam seemed to be steady and able to reach the branch. Sam put her hands around the branch and pulled herself up into a sitting position. Okay, it seems strong, Sam said as she took a breath, and then grabbed the branch just above her head to help her into a standing position. Right, Jojo, look at the dial and see is this working, she said as she took the torch out of her back pocket and pointed it and shone it straight at the moon dial. Jojo stood looking at the dial, but it didn't still look right. She walked around the dial to try and figure out what needed to be done, and then looked up at where Sam was standing. Sam, I think you need to go a bit higher, she said. What? Higher? No, that's too dangerous, Anna sighed. No problem, Sam answered and ignored Anna's comments. She looked up and decided in her mind's eye the best way to get up to the next branch. Just at Sam's waist level was a small stub that was left from a branch that had fallen off, and it was sticking out about 4 inches. She figured that she could use that to stand on one leg to get the height she needed to pull herself up to the next branch. Jojo, Kay and Anna looked up at Sam as she grunted and groaned as she pulled her body weight up to the next suitable branch that she figured could take her weight. The wind was blowing and smashing lighter branches into her face, which was causing her to be slightly disorientated as she moved up to the next branch. But finally she made it, and sitting with her legs hanging over the branch, she smiled as she caught her breath and waved down at her friends. Are you okay? Anna shouted up to Sam. Yes, I'm fine. Let me get the torch and see if it makes a difference now, she said as she pulled the torch out of her pocket. But as she pulled it out, it nearly dropped, and Sam had to grab the branch to steady herself, and in the same motion, grab the torch. She was hugging the branch for dear life, but she still, thankfully, had the torch. Sam, are you okay? Jojo shouted as he stood closer to the tree, with her hands out as if she was going to catch Sam if she fell. Though in reality, if Sam fell, catching her was never going to be an option. I'm okay, came the half-hearted reply from above as Sam slowly eased herself back into a proper sitting position. Taking short breaths, She took her hands slowly off the branch and switched the torch on. The beam of light shot out in front of Sam, lighting up the dark night that stretched out across the field. After about 30 or 40 feet, the light faded and the dark night took over again. Sam pointed the light beam down towards where her friends were. She moved along the ground till she found the moon dial. "Okay, does that make any difference?" she shouted down to no one in particular. Kay said nothing, because she could still not figure out how anyone could tell the time using a round stone. So she left it to Anna and Jojo, who were staring at the dial. "I don't think it's on the right time yet," Jojo said as she walked around the dial. "What?" came the reply from up high in the tree. "I said it does not look right," Jojo shouted this time. "Well, I am not going any higher," Sam shouted back as she looked up into the tree. She's decided there and then that she was high enough. Also, the movement of the branches in the darkness above her head gave her a really creepy feeling. "She's right. It's too dangerous for her to go any higher," Anna said, agreeing with Sam and looking at Jojo, who was still walking round the dial. Jojo looked up at the beam of light again and again at the dial. "Sam, I don't think you need to go any higher. You just need to move out a bit." "What?" Sam asked, shouting down from high above. "Sorry, Sam. You don't need to go any higher. You need to move out a bit. It's nearly on the right time now, but you're about a foot too far in." Sam had heard Jojo, and she looked at the branch that grew out in front of her, getting thinner and thinner the further it moved out. She shoved the torch, still on, into her back pocket, and then took a deep, deep breath. The others looked up from below as Sam very, very slowly moved a bit further out along the branch, with the wind still blowing in her face. Anna did not like the whole idea and just stood there with her hand over her mouth, trying not to make any sound that would distract Sam. Kay had her hands on her hips, more a bit bored than worried, and starting to get hungry. And Jojo wondered if this would be all worth it. Sam stopped and steadied herself, and then slowly, very slowly, took the torch out of her back pocket and shined it down on the dial below. All eyes were now looking at the shadow that was cast on the dial. Jojo was trying to figure out if it was now telling the right time. "Well?" came the question from high above in the trees. Then they all heard the deafening sound at the same time, the sound of wood splitting. 3 sets of eyes looked up in horror at Sam, who seemed to be urgently deciding what to do. Fear gripped them and robbed them of any sound. The sound of cracking wood became the only sound in the dark night. Sam twisted her body round, trying to figure out what to grab to save herself from falling. The sound of cracking wood became the only sound in the dark night. Sam twisted her body round, trying to figure out what to grab to save herself from falling. When the next cracking sound came, Sam felt the branch she was on moving downwards. Her arms reached out and up and everywhere as she tried to grab hold of anything that would break her fall. But all she found was wet leaves and wet branches that broke as she applied any force to them. The branch continued to move downwards, and she felt herself losing the battle not to fall with the branch. Instinct made the other girls run in towards the tree, thinking they could catch Sam and miss the falling branch. Only when they were near the base did it hit them how stupid the idea was. "Sam, jump!" Kay shouted. "Grab something!" Jojo shouted at the same time as Kay. Each instruction lost in the sound of breaking branches and wind and Sam's screams. But in the middle of all the confusion, no one had taken the time to see the reaction that the flashlight had caused on the sundial when Sam's torch had hit the dial and made it tell the correct time, 10 p.m. The second sound of wood cracking came as Sam's whole body began to move downwards at speed towards the ground. But this sound was not from any branches. It was really more like a sound you get when you open a door that had not been open in years. The sound of wood struggling against the need to open. Anna was the only one that heard this new sound, and she looked directly at the base of the tree as the first bit of light from the hidden doorway in the tree hit her eyes, where all three of them felt the ground move and groan. Thank you very much for tuning in this week to listen to Chapter 4 of The Umbrella Girls and the Tree People. Don't forget to follow our podcast so that you don't miss any future episodes. And also, very soon, we're going to give you the opportunity to join the Umbrella Girls gang. So till next time, thank you and take care.